Thank you for joining me today. Curiosity is a lifelong trait that drives engineers. In a recent 2020 report on Asian American Executive Leadership by LEAP, Leadership Education for Asian Pacifics, it was found that curiosity is a key characteristic of this group. I'm glad to share with you what I've learned about maximizing your Asian culture in your career by identifying career derailers and enhancers. Please continue your curiosity by attending the additional WE20 sessions and events. Asian Americans experience cultural bias and stereotypes that can enhance or inhibit their career. Asian women are impacted by both gender and cultural biases. This session will help attendees maximize the key aspects of their culture to promote career growth along through the exchange of life stories and experiences. We will also identify characteristics within Asian culture that can negatively impact careers and how they can be transformed into positives. Let's begin with introductions of our panel of Asian engineers and leaders. Let's start with Han and go down the line.
Hi, my name is Dwight Schnell. I am a systems engineer at Lockheed Martin Corporation. I am also the co-chair of Lockheed Martin's Women's Impact Network for my business area, leading business resource groups in our area for 23 locations throughout the United States. I am a first generation immigrant from Vietnam and serve as the empowerment co-lead for SWE's Asian Connections Affinity Group. I'm an avid volunteer both in STEM outreach and in community outreach, and I am also a wife and mother of two children. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Our next panelist is Vanessa.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Lee. I work at Novellus Aluminum as a technical manager, and I'm also a site champion for the Woman in Novellus Affinity Group. My pronouns is she, her, hers. I'm an immigrant from Hong Kong when I was 16. I also have an interest in doing STEM outreach with the community. Khan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Vanessa. Hello, everyone. My name is Kan Vu. I'm the SACE CEO and Executive Director. SACE stands for the Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers. We're excited that we just signed the SACE SWE MOU, and it also speaks to I was a SWE member back in college a while back. I immigrated from Vietnam when I was young. I identify with he, him pronouns. I'm the first in my family to attend college. I'm a proud father of four and a huge advocate for my better half. She's a software engineer at Amazon. Lisi, do you want to go next?
Sure, thank you. My name is Lisi Q, and I will be moderating this session today. I'm currently a mechanical engineering student at Stony University. Within SWE, I'm a founding member and lead of the Asian Connections Affinity Group. My cultural heritage is Chinese American, and I also identify as a first generation college student and first generation American. My pronouns are she, her, hers. So getting into the bulk of this session, my first question for our panelists is, could you share a cultural story that might have had a significant impact on your career? Han, would you like to start?
Thank you. I'm reminded of my first engineering job out of college. And one day, my engineering manager stopped me in the hall and he said, Khan, I want to talk to you about something. I said, sure, what's up? And he said to me, Khan, you need to look people in the eye when they're talking. And I was like, what do you mean? When I'm usually listening, I point my ear in your direction. Isn't that good enough? Because, really, at the end of the day, what do you really need to be listening? He goes, no, you have to actually show people that you're actively listening by looking at them rather than looking somewhere else. That was the first time anybody ever told me that I had to look somebody in the eye when they're listening to indicate that I am actually listening to them, because that's not how I was taught when I was young. When my father, and particularly somebody in authority, when they're speaking to me, I usually am looking somewhere else, not at them directly, because my father told me that if you look me in the eye, you're challenging what I'm saying. And obviously, I don't want to show him that I'm challenging what he's saying, but I'm listening. So I would always look downward. And so that was the first time that somebody pointed out in the Western culture, paying attention and showing your engagement is through active listening, eye engagement. And so that's been very interesting. And I've been trying to untrain myself specifically in the professional world to look people in the eye. And it's still something I work with on this day.
Yeah, I really resonate with that, what you have said, Con, that about active listening. I think that growing up in an Asian family, we are taught to respect others, especially those in authority. We're told to listen carefully to what others say. And those early lessons have really taught me to pay attention to the content of the message and to ask insightful questions. This skill really has served me well in my career and have earned me that reputation of being someone who asks good questions during meetings. Another lesson that uh, regarding listening that I learned as a child is that when someone tells you something, that information is like a gift, and gifts are to be treasured. When you enter into a conversation with another person with that mindset of receiving information as a gift, it allows you to focus your attention on what that person has to say. And this kind of focus helps you to be present during that conversation, which really leads to better dialogues.
Speaking of gifts, one gift I was given by my parents is my name. So my Chinese name is Chu Le Shi, which translates roughly to lyrical poetry. In Chinese culture, the surname comes before the first name, which emphasizes the importance of family. I've struggled with my Chinese name for most of my life because it can be difficult to pronounce for many people. In college, I even considered changing my name to Lisa or Leslie or something easy to pronounce. I've spoken to recruiters and I've seen the hesitation on their faces when they read my actual name and they don't know what to say or what to call me, which has made me very self-conscious about my name. However, when I tried using a different name, I realized that I wasn't being authentic to myself. No name fits me better than my actual name, which is Lisi. So I began to see the positives of my name. It's unique, it's memorable, and in my opinion, it sounds nice. And I really believe with my name, I can make an impact on people and on my work. So I want to emphasize staying authentic to yourself and to find creative solutions. So what I've done to help people pronounce my name if they've never heard it is I've added the pronunciation to my resume or business card and in my signature in my emails. So that lowers the barrier for other people to say my name. Vanessa, do you have a story you would like to share?
Yeah, thank you, Lizzie, for sharing your story about your name. I also struggle a little bit in the beginning when I first come to the US, and people just have a hard time trying to remember my name. But luckily, my parents give me Vanessa as my middle name. So my first name is in Cantonese, and my middle name is in Vanessa. So I just decide to, okay, just go with Vanessa and just get it done with. But yeah, I did struggle with that quite a lot when I first came. So my story would be when I first come to the US when I was 16, in the classroom setting, I was very used to being quiet because in Asian culture, we were told that when the teacher is speaking, you don't speak. You don't speak to each other, you need to listen. So I was very quiet in the classroom because I want to be a good student. I come to the US and I study in California high school, and I realized that the classroom in the US, they emphasize a lot on idea sharing, sharing each other's ideas and participation. So in the beginning, people probably feel like, how come I'm so quiet? I'm not participating in the classroom. But I actually struggle. I try to speak up more, but I didn't know how. I tried to put up my hands and wait for people to let me speak because that's the way I was taught. But people still feel like the perception was I'm not participating enough. So in school, I try to speak up more, but then when it gets to work environment, it's a little bit different again. At work, sometimes people want to get a team to work with each other, sharing ideas. Then people start to think of, interruption is not nice. So that's another challenge that I have to overcome as far as when I start working. Khan, you have a story to share about when to interrupt and the art of dancing. Do you want to share?
Thank you, Vanessa. The art of conversation is really a skill that many Asians haven't learned, particularly in cultures that are Confucius in nature. They are taught to speak when spoken to, and then the rest of the time to be quiet. In the American way of dialogue and conversation, particularly in the workplace, we really have to understand it's like a dance, right? You give some, you take some, you have to look at the reaction, look at the intonation, and it's a complex dance. And particularly in higher, as you move up higher in the company, the dance becomes more complex, right? In the beginning, it might seem like it's a Macarena. It's a pretty simple dance that you can learn. But as you go up in management, in leadership, the nuances, the opportunity for you to interrupt and for you to contribute is more like Viennese waltz, ballet, things that are a lot more complex. And if we don't, as Asians, don't practice early and often, I think it'll be a challenge for us. So, my advice to other Asians who are not used to speaking and dialoguing is to start practicing. And it will feel uncomfortable in the beginning, but I think you'll become better over time. So thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Khan, for that vivid imagery. As a dancer, I can really see the parallels between communication and dancing. Han, could you also share a cultural bias or stereotype you struggle with and how you overcame it?
Sure, Lacey. Thank you for that question. One of the aspects of my Asian culture that I needed to overcome to be successful is that of being a perfectionist. From an early age, we are taught to be the best. And the idea that we are Asians and not Besians drives that need for perfection. And this expectation of Asian students is always to get that A or that A plus and to do all that extra credit to get the highest grade you could possibly get. And that mindset is great in the classroom environment, but it doesn't always translate well into the work environment where you're expected to meet deadlines and not only deadlines, but also within a certain budget. And therefore, you can't always spend that extra time because that equates to extra money that you may not want to be spending to develop that perfect solution to the problems that you're trying to solve. Um, so there's a transition that needs to happen for in your mind and change your mindset to understand that what is good enough, what is adequate versus what is perfect. And in industry, the perfect design or the perfect solution may not be the best solution because it may not be the most cost effective um, solution, or it may not be something that is easily producible. So we need to be able to balance what is needed and not always seek that perfection. So by understanding what is required for that project, we are able to understand what is adequate and to properly design that solution so that we can meet the needs of the project and our customers. Vanessa, do you also have a story about the classroom that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so a lot of time we hear that people talk about, oh, all Asians are good at math or Asians are always good at math. What I want to share is I think this is a bias because it's not that we were born to be good at math, but we put a lot of hard work into doing extra practice, remembering the multiplication table. Um, our family put a lot of emphasis on, making sure we study a lot, and there's a lot of hard work being put into the practice to make us probably a little better at math. I also want to point out that uh, it wasn't until at a later age where I was given a calculator. So I was doing a lot of math in my head before I was given a calculator. And after using the calculator for a while, I realized my math skill actually start to decrease and go downhill. So I don't think Asian people are just naturally good at math. There's just a lot of hard work. And Khan, do you want to share a little history about the immigrant and their STEM career?
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. 50% of the US Asians are foreign born currently, and there's a big reason why that is. Before 1965, Asians in certain segments of Asia were banned from immigrating to the United States. And the Immigration Act of 1965 opened up immigration based on profession and talent. And that really geared towards the STEM professions because during that time, if you remember, those of you who've been around or if you studied history, that we were in a Cold War. So we wanted folks who had the scientific and engineering knowledge to beat the Russian in the Cold War, especially the race to the moon, outer space. And so we imported a lot of folks who have STEM-based skills into the United States. And so there was a natural bias in our immigration policy that attracted a lot of Asians who had STEM skills to come to the United States. And the implication is still to this day, a lot of graduate students who come and study in the United States are STEM based and are from Asia. And so it has impact into not only back in 65, but to their children. If you're an engineer, if your parents are an engineer, you are more likely influenced to go into a STEM profession. So there are, immigration policies and policies that affect how the Asian minority myth is set.
Thank you, Khan. It's great to have that historical context. Many things are not as they seem on the surface level. Asians in leadership is also a controversial topic. Han, could you give your perspective and experience on this?
Sure, Lisi. There is a stereotype that Asians are known to be great workers, but not necessarily have the good leadership skills. However, the many traits associated with Asians as hard workers can translate into Asians being great leaders. First, that strong work ethic, often attributed to Asian workers, is a good foundation for strong leadership. When we take the view that every job is important, we value each person and treat each person and their roles with respect. And as leaders, we can help others see how their role fits into the larger picture and help them understand why their role is important and the impact that it makes on the larger team, the larger project, the larger scale vision. Secondly, uh, as Lisi had mentioned earlier, our Asian names begin with our surnames, and that ordering teaches us that the family is more important than the individual. And that belief reminds us that as a leader, we are there to support the team, and we are there to bring them up and provide them what they need because the team is bigger than ourselves. And lastly, our active listening skills allow us to be very perceptive of what people tell us and the information that we receive. And therefore, we can perceive issues and concerns and be able to address them properly. Needed to be a successful leader.
All right, thank you so much for sharing your stories. Panelists, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I will start first. I think a lot of time people, when they face people from different background, different culture, they may not know what's the appropriate way to approach. A lot of time they are curious to learn about other people's culture, but they may be afraid that whatever they say will offend people. Um, I want to encourage everyone to don't be afraid to ask. You can always ask in a nice way. And people that, you get to know for a while and if they are your friend, they probably wouldn't feel offended if you didn't use a very good way to ask a question. I think people will really like to see you are willing to learn. And if you don't ask stupid question, you don't make a mistake, you will never learn. So you need to step up and speak up. Um, so that way we can all learn about each other culture. So don't be afraid to ask and continue to learn.
That's a great point, Vanessa. I go back to that first conversation with my engineering manager. If he didn't say anything, that I don't think I would be where I'm at and realize that there's such a difference in how I was raised, expected to behave, and how I should behave to be a leader in the U.S. workplace. And really, the U.S. workplace is a British-based leadership, very culturally speaking. So my advice for folks is that if you want to be a good Asian ally, then, you know, to what Vanessa said, is learn about the culture, but also provide feedback. If one of your colleagues is not speaking up during a meeting, you might want to invite them and be a good ally and, point in their direction and saying, so and so, do you have any thoughts on it? Invite them to be part of the conversation and also give them feedback, like my engineering manager did, so that I'm aware that that's how I'm projecting myself, because I might not be aware. And at the time, I wasn't aware. So I think there are great ways for us to be allies to each other and help each other learn that how we're projecting ourselves, how we see ourselves, may not be how other people see ourselves. So that's my 2 cents. Do you have any other thoughts?
Yes, yeah, I would like to add that we need to be curious and seek to learn about each other's background and culture. Even within our Asian community, we need to be aware that there are many different subcultures, and we within ourselves need to learn and understand them. Only through knowledge and understanding can we truly be allies to one another. Uh, and employee resource groups and affinity groups are great resources for that growth in knowledge. I would highly recommend that you participate in those organizations and attend their events. If your company does not have such a group, um, I really ask you to think about starting it for yourselves and help to start that conversation within your company. Have those conversations with somebody different from yourselves so that you both can learn and grow and understand each other better. It is only through these thoughtful interactions and meaningful conversations with each other that we can truly be allies and advocate for each other.
We also challenge you to connect with us on social media and the internet, and we invite you to participate in the conversation on Asian culture. You can find more information on the affinity group through our link tree, which is displayed right now. You can also learn more about SACE on saceconnect.org. So thank you for joining us in our presentation today. I hope you found it interesting and useful. And while circumstances have brought us to a completely virtual WE20, I look forward to a time when we can all meet safely in person. Until then, be safe, stay healthy, and practice curiosity. Thank you. Please take a moment to fill out the WE20 session survey. You can access the form by scanning the QR code currently on your screen. We have additional sessions on the topic of Asian culture and leadership within engineering at WE20. Tune into a live session on Unlocking Asian American Leadership Potential by Dennis Hirotsu on Saturday, November 7th from 11:15 a.m. to 12 p.m. Central Time. We will have an Asian Connections AG networking session right afterwards. We also have 2 on-demand lightning talks. Year 1 as a Suite Affinity Group available on Monday, November 2nd, and Not Crazy, Maybe Rich, Definitely Asian, available on Tuesday, November 10th. Make sure to connect with us online and practice curiosity.